feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. You can download that. It's free in your phone. Just type it in. JB and Goldwater app is available anytime, and, of course, we're live 12 to 2 daily, and you can always go back and check us out if you happen to miss something across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB. And at Darren Goldwater, 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It is also our text line. It is open and available. You can always head to our website, jbandgoldwatershow.com, if you want to know more about us. And it is another busy day as Media Week continues to roll right along. The ACC is now underway. The SEC is on day 3. Saban already at the podium this morning. Mike Leach coming up this afternoon. Clark Lee has spoken, representing Vanderbilt. So we got some news and notes from all of that to fuss and discuss. JC Shurburtt for a full hour from 12:30 to until 1:30. And then part 4 of our It's Time for Carolina Football mini-series with Keith Allsep coming up at 1:30 this afternoon. But Darren, none of that matters because at the end of the day, it's National Hot Dog Day. And all of us need to be chowing down on a wiener somewhere. What's up, man?
So I didn't know if I would lead with that or this. We're busy today, so I don't know how much we're really breaking down the Columbia Women's City Championship, but we should, and we'll leave it at Meredith Taylor as a city champ. So congratulations to a great friend of the show who the trophy was riding shotgun in her car today, and it probably will be for a while. So congratulations to Meredith.
There's no question about that. Meredith is one of the sweetest, best people out there, and clearly she's still a hell of a golfer. And so very, 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 very proud of her. That was really neat. She actually sent us that message last night, Darren. That was really neat to see. So congratulations, Meredith, no doubt. Or should we call her coach? Should we call her coach? Are we allowed to call her Meredith?
Coach, whatever.
I tell you, and we'll get to all the media day stuff. We got you totally covered with that. There's plenty to fuss and discuss on that front throughout the afternoon until 2:00 here. And then we're gonna. By the way, there's another great day. It's another great day in addition to National Hot Dog Day. But the whole Dion thing, like, isn't this what Spurrier always said? It's talking season, man. Ain't nothing else to talk about. You almost wonder if it was staged, right? Because, like, I mean, he's wrong. Like, that wasn't true what he said. I sat there and watched Nick Saban's interview today. A lot of reporters that don't know Nick called him Nick, and every other coach in the SEC. But they even acknowledged each other. He's like, yeah, I know the guy, Nick, the reporter on that video. I know Nick. He's a great guy. And then he called him Dion. And then he didn't leave, by the way, folks. He actually just got up and walked to the next little camera to talk to the next media person. You almost wonder if it was staged. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't seem real.
So my initial reaction was that, and it was, you're doing whatever you want to do because that's the type of person you are. It could be more than that because the day prior, yesterday, earlier in the day, a Clarion Ledger reporter was essentially banned from covering Jackson State football because he reported on a domestic violence charge on a recruit to Jackson State. That upset Dion, that upset the school, and that reporter has absolutely been punished. You could say banned, you could say a lot of different things. His ability to get interviews has absolutely been hurt, and he was told no at that media day. And then this is a response following that to that reporter. So,
and they're from the same. They're from the same outlet.
Yeah, they are. So there's more to this, and it's even more uncomfortable if you just, whether or not they're related, it's easy to tie those two together. And even if the Coach Prime Dion thing didn't even happen, you can't start telling reporters don't do your job because I don't like what you're reporting. There was a domestic violence charge on the highest ranked recruit in Jackson State history who previously committed to Kansas and then had that dropped, or I guess they released him once this alleged incident came to light. That was prior to charges, which have since been brought, and I believe there was appearance in court yesterday.
That's interesting. I didn't know that part. Well, you know, whether they're related or not, I'm not sure. And if I guess if Dion wants people to call him Coach or Coach Prime or whatever, he probably just needs to put that out there himself and let people know, you know, hey, unless we're on a personal level, don't call me by my first name. Darren, I'd have to go back and check all the tape, but I mean, this is second year as a coach. I'd venture a guess that at some point in time in the last 365 plus days, somebody somewhere in an interview has called him Dion, and he hasn't done this.
Yeah, Barrett Sallee today at SEC Media Day, at some point during the day prior to the show starting, he tweeted out there were a number of, I think he said 7 or 8, questions to Nick Saban, currently at the podium on SEC Media Days, that started with Nick. He was addressed as Nick like 7 or 8 times, and there was no cussing out. There was no deal at all. It was, okay, now I'm going to answer the question.
Yeah, I sat there and watched. I watched 3 different media appearances today by Nick Saban. One where he called in this morning to Chris and Peter Burns, and then on the podium watched his entire tenure up there, or whatever you want to call it. And then afterwards with Greg McElroy and with Laura Rutledge sitting on set, and they all, I mean, McElroy still calls him Coach, but he did coach him. It's kind of normal. You know, but yeah, I heard Nick multiple times. As a matter of fact, I was going back and just checking a lot of SEC guys over the last couple of days. I mean, this is just recent history. Everybody was called by their first name. This is like never come up before ever in the history of sports. I that's why I thought there was maybe a part of it where Dion was like, I want people to call me Coach Prime, and he just kind of thought about that and, you know, whatever. But dude, we're talking about it. So does it work? I mean, temporarily, is this going to make me go plug the Jackson State schedule into my phone so I don't forget when they're playing? No. Am I going to watch them play this year? I don't know. If it's a Friday night, there's nothing else on, I'm not going to remove myself from any other game to watch Jackson State just because they're coached by Dion. I don't care. You know what I mean? It has us talking about them, so maybe there's some effect on it that he was looking for. But at the end of the day, I don't know that this is the best thing in the world.
No, and it's number one, it's not a good look because it continues the narrative of the type of personality that he is, right? I'm bigger than the world, and nothing else matters but me. So at the end of the day, I mean, it's not a good look. It's not a good look that it happened to the same outlet that reported a domestic violence accusation against a recruit the same day or a day earlier. That's not a good look. There's a lot of things that I don't love about this. But does he have us talking? Yeah. Is this what we're talking about and not the domestic violence allegation? Yeah. So did he have this staged? I don't know, but it's not a good look.
Yeah, I like what Greg says there. The next reporter should call him Neon. That's true. That'd that'd be a good stunt. I didn't even know about the domestic violence thing, so I think he's actually probably going to have more people talking about that now than before.
It could be
about it.
No, I didn't know about it until this story, and then just kind of going through it, it caught my eye. I said, "Wait, what?" Yeah. And look,
strange.
It's right. It's not just an allegation and a report of it. There are now charges, and the fact that reporter is now under some sort of penalty with the school. They've denied he's been banned or whatever the word they use. But clearly he was told he can't do interviews and should go cover somebody else and couldn't interview Deion's son at media days. So that's not cool either.
Well, good luck to primetime. Good luck to Deion Sanders and Jackson State and whatever else they got going on around there. Good luck to them.
Exactly.
We got bigger fish to fry, but I just thought that everybody is kind of tongue-in-cheeking this now, and there was even somebody who asked Saban a question today. He's like, I'm gonna call you Nick or something like that, and Saban was like, what are you talking about? He didn't even understand it because Nick is just Nick. By the way, I could listen to Nick Saban talk literally all day. He could walk up and sit in this office and say, let me tell you how that paint right there is going to dry. And I'd want to listen to it. Just another, really good, if you want to call it performance, media session, whatever you want by Nick Saban, certainly. Hey, by the way, I got a little poll question out there. If you're on Twitter and you follow me, you can go answer. What's your favorite hot dog? I like the big quarter-pound juicy Nathan's hot dogs. I didn't used to till I found them in the store, and now it's my favorite. Darren's a Hebrew National guy. He's been very vocal about that over the years. I'm assuming you're going to have a hot dog today.
Yes.
Okay.
So here's the thing, though. I thought that we had a National Hot Dog Day not long ago, and we must have had something of it because I said something to Grayson, my daughter, this morning when I was putting together this thing. She said, it's National Hot Dog Day again? So I Googled this. It's part of National Hot Dog month-long celebration is National Hot Dog Day today. So maybe I just got confused.
So this is National Hot Dog Month?
Yeah, apparently. And part of the month is the day.
I didn't know that. Well, I would have been eating more hot dogs. Okay. All right. Well, we're definitely going to do it now. I mean, I'm eating a hot dog today. There's no question about that. The kids are, when they come home, they're getting hot dogs for supper. So there you go. If you want to check into that, it is also National Junk Food Day. Do you have a favorite junk food?
God, anything chocolate. I mean, I can't go wrong with chocolate. That's where I'd go. Doritos are good too, but chocolate.
I mean, I'm a big chips guy. I love chips. I love to try. I would suggest trying these brand new Lay's BLT summer chips. They're pretty sensational.
Never heard of them.
Pretty sensational. But my go-to is a glass of milk and 2 or 3 peanut butter Oreos at night.
Yeah, I'm a regular Oreo guy. Don't mess with perfect. That's pretty much perfect.
Dude, I'll never eat another regular Oreo. Now that I've been on the peanut butter train for like 2 or 3 years, I eat a regular Oreo. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I have to do the peanut butter. It's crazy.
It's one of the stranger things you've ever said or done, I think.
I just peanut butter. I can do peanut butter with anything. I love peanut butter. You know what I mean?
That's fair.
Yeah. But that one though, Tyler, lemon Oreos. Dude, I don't know. I've never had a lemon Oreo. I don't even know if I've seen a lemon Oreo.
I don't know if they're real, but they sound awful.
I don't think I've ever seen one. I kind of want to try one just to try one now. But I don't know about that. Anyways. All right. Let's move on to football because there are a couple of media days going on today. The ACC, Jim Phillips spoke this morning. We have a lot on the SEC for all of you SEC fans. We do have JC Shurburtt and Keith Allsep back to back as our guests on this Wednesday afternoon. But Jim Phillips, I actually thought he was fairly pointed as a new commissioner this morning. He was asked about Notre Dame, and he all but said, hey, we'd really like them to join the conference full-time as a football member. He said Notre Dame loves being 2 things, independent and Catholic. And sometimes they like being independent more than Catholic. That's what the commissioner said. I thought it was pretty good. And so we'll kind of see where it goes. But, he referenced the success of the league last year. Well, clearly, the ACC got 2 teams into the college football playoff because Notre Dame was a part of it. I think that the next question with that, I I think we'd probably be fairly naive, Darren, to think that behind the scenes that the Atlantic Coast Conference is not constantly just chirping in the ear of the Irish of here's why you should join our league. Maybe there are concessions that they're willing to make in order to get that done. I don't know, but I would venture a guess. And Notre Dame is, I mean, gosh, dude, if you had to forget, I'm not talking about success. Forget it. I'm not talking about success, although they've been very successful the last few years. But if you had to pick the 3 brand names in college football, I mean, Alabama, Notre Dame, and Ohio State.
Those are 3 good ones. I mean, if you're talking brand in college football, national brand, one that sticks in your head, Notre Dame is in that conversation every single time. It has to. What do you think of them? They're in the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. You either love Notre Dame or you hate Notre Dame almost. You know what I mean? Bama's always going to be in there. I would say, much to the begrudging of our Clemson friends in this state, they are a national brand when it comes to success. But I mean, I met somebody in Wyoming that didn't even know where Clemson was. You know what I mean? So and I'm not saying that to disparage the Tigers. I'm just saying that Alabama and Notre Dame and Ohio State, if you want to maybe throw Southern Cal or Texas in there, that's like the storied history of the sport. And that's what I'm getting to with brand name, and so I would say Alabama and Notre Dame are always right there at the top. You probably at times could find a way to fit maybe Florida State or Miami in there. That third one is probably a little bit of a revolving door. If it was me, I would probably say Ohio State personally. But at the end of the day, the point is when Notre Dame plays, whether they're good or bad, or you like them or don't like them, people pay attention. And the ACC has every reason. Everybody would have every reason to want Notre Dame.
Yeah, here we go again, right? Notre Dame has been chased to enter conferences for, I don't know, forever. They have no reason to reverse course now if they haven't done so yet. The money is so big now, and they haven't jumped for the money in conferences, be it the Big Ten or the ACC. Why would they do it now if they haven't done it yet? They're very comfortable where they are, and even if the playoffs expand, with all that talk about, Notre Dame this, Notre Dame that, they're not going to get a bye, they can't be a conference. They didn't care. That was pretty clear. Shurburtt was part of the group that put that thing together. Notre Dame's not joining a conference anytime soon. It'd be great for the ACC. They're not doing it.
I think that it would have to be a forced hand type situation.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So NBC has a contract with Notre Dame. If NBC elected, let's say that contract was due for expiration. They always pre-negotiate long before the deadline. Let's say it's a couple years out, and NBC has an opportunity to make even more money, make more of a splash in college football by signing an agreement with a league, not just a program. Which I get it. Notre Dame is, comparatively to some leagues out there, has more eyes on it than some of these leagues in total. But if there was ever a point where NBC, if it was NBC, they might just say we don't even want to do this anymore, which I think would be silly. But we're going to replace Notre Dame with whoever, the Pac-12. We want Saturday night football on NBC from the Pac-12, double headers. The Big 12 or the Big 10 or whatever. Maybe I don't know. I would venture a guess, Darren, to replace Notre Dame, probably gonna have to replace it with a Power 5 conference.
Here's why there's 2 reasons why it won't happen. Number one, NBC is making very clear moves away from the majority of their collegiate sports. NBC Sports Network isn't doing what they used to do with their collegiate sports. NBC as an entity is moving away from college sports. So they're not dumping a massive, national is short-siding it, right? Notre Dame is, I don't know about global, but it's bigger than just national type of brand.
North American, continental.
Yeah, sure. That's fair. English, Scottish, they seem to be big out there too. But either way, they're not dumping them and then going heavier in. The contract runs for a couple more years at least. I'm not certain of when that contract runs out. It's not ending anytime soon. And if it ends, NBC's out of collegiate sports, not moving in another direction.
Well, then there you go. Then where does Notre Dame go to find their own home? I mean, they're the only program out there that has a deal like this with one of the major networks. I mean, Texas has the Longhorn Network. I get it, but the Longhorn Network and NBC are two totally different things here. So that would be a hand forcer for Notre Dame. Hey, look, you have to replace dollars with dollars. How are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? Because that TV contract is gone. So you need to – so, they might just say, well, we're going to hold out until that day comes, if it ever comes, and then we'll elect to move in a different direction. I just don't know. I mean, as it pertains to the ACC, I continue to say that I don't think – I think Notre Dame fits much better in the Big Ten. Geographically speaking, historically speaking. I mean, they don't have, outside of Boston College, Darren, they don't have built-in rivalries in the ACC.
No, I consider Southern Cal one of Notre Dame's biggest, if not them and Michigan. Michigan's a massive rival on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, Stanford, Boston College, Navy's a great rival but I'm with you. Like when it comes to prominence, Southern Cal and Notre Dame, man. I mean, we all think recent terms, the Reggie Bush push, right? So, those type things. Yeah, I just don't know. I think one day, though, if I had to make a decade long prediction, where will Notre Dame be in 2031? I think they'll be in a conference. I really do, because you just see the money boiling, and at some point in time, it's going to flip. It's just going to flip, and Notre Dame's going to be making X number of dollars, which is going to be substantial, but the payout from these leagues is going to be way more.
I've thought that for a long time, that it would only make sense that sooner or later it's inevitable. But that long time has become longer. And the longer it goes, there's no reason for me to think, unless their hand is forced, like you say, unless NBC says, sorry, guys, we're out, then they need to find a league. Then they need to find a home. Otherwise, or maybe if the college football playoff changes things enough, if it changes more than we think it might change, just in terms of some of the background rules, how you qualify, what you might be guaranteed, or if the Power Five breaks away from the NCAA, maybe that entices them to join a league if they have to, without being forced. I don't think Notre Dame joins a league.
Yeah, I mean, the college football playoff is incredibly interesting, because if Notre Dame finishes in the top four for 3 straight years, if they convert to, which we're going to talk about that in a little bit, to a 12-team playoff, and they don't ever get to host a game, somebody up there is going to grow tired of that. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to get, well, we should be in the top 3, but we can't be in the top 3. We're undefeated. We beat everybody, but you can't be, because you're not a conference champion, so you're 5th, or, whatever it is. I shouldn't have said what I said about being able to host a game, but not being able to be in that top 4 and have a bye week and then go into right to the quarterfinals. Somebody's going to say, well, we're the best team in the country. We've been number 1 all season long. We've beaten everybody by 3 touchdowns. It's not close. And we're the 5 seed. We're tired of it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
They would take boosters and influential folks, because Shurburtt clearly doesn't think that, if he's part of the group that put this whole thing together.
Yeah. Well, exactly. They were part of the reason that this proposal came out, which we're going to talk to JC about some of this in just a little bit as well. You almost wonder, and I don't think there will be enough, but there are powerful voices in this sport, and 2 of them in 2 straight days have spoken, Coach Sweeney and Coach Saban.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you ask me today, all right, who are the 2 most influential coaches in college football? Nick is number 1. I think Dabo's probably there at number 2. And we have a lot of Carolina folks that watch and listen to this program, and you hate hearing that. I get it. But I got news for you. When he speaks, people listen. And they might go back and pick on something that he said. They might go make fun of something that they said. They might disagree. They might agree. Whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, people listen. And Dabo yesterday said his team not in favor of a 12-team playoff, reference schedules, how many games they might have to play and things like that. I think Dabo, a lot of his reasoning was more along the lines of he's a traditionalist, and hey, look, I don't want to eliminate bowl season and things like that. We'll get a little bit more into it in just a few minutes. Nick Saban said similar things today, guys. And, here's a guy in Nick Saban who, if you said, Coach, you're going to play a 12-game all-league schedule next year, he'd say, I'm all in. Let's do it. I love playing in the SEC. Let's play all the SEC teams. He's a big fan of competition and difficulty and things like that. He's not going to shy away from it. But, he brought up the number of games played. Now, keep in mind, that would only be 2 teams out of the entire sport that would have to play 17 games in a 12-team playoff. All right, that's it. But at the same time, it's not just the number of games. It's how long are you lengthening the season with the playoffs. You got pretty much another month worth of practice and things like that for all these guys. And he brought up a couple of other things. What I'm getting at here, Darren, is not necessarily to summarize their why, but just to say 2 of the largest voices in this sport have not just jumped with 2 feet in and said, I'm all for it. We need to expand this thing. They're very hesitant, if not maybe even leaning the other way. And Saban also, alongside Coach Sweeney, referenced bowl season. He said, you're going to have to pick a lane. You're either going to take the playoff lane or the bowl lane, but they probably can't coexist. Do you think we could ever get to a point where these voices, the leaders of this sport, Dabo's $90 million and Saban's $90 million, and all those that follow in their footsteps could say, you know what, this sounds great, but we don't want it. We want to stay right where we are.
The reason Dabo and Nick Saban are saying what they're saying is because, number one, maybe the 17-game thing, but number 2, if not 1A in the 17-game thing would then get bumped down to number 2. Why should it expansion of the playoff does not help Clemson and Alabama. If anything, it hurts them. If the purpose of expanding the playoffs is to bring more teams into the fold and to get parity more spread out across college football, that negatively impacts Alabama and Clemson. It doesn't surprise me that the 2 of them are out there saying, yeah, I'm not for this. What's interesting, Mac Brown in North Carolina said the exact same thing a day or 2 before Gene Sapakoff asked Dabo Sweeney that question. I think it was Gene who asked him that one. But they said the same thing. He said, come on, talk to our players. Our players at North Carolina are not for the expansion of the playoff. It didn't get a whole lot of news because it's North Carolina. But the reason these 2 guys are some of the preeminent voices is because they're the best teams in the country. They're going to be around the top. And the reason they don't want it is because they don't want other people around the top.
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword because there's that side of it. Like if you're Clemson or Alabama, or anybody out there, but these are the 2 that have been there consistently in the playoff era. You don't want anybody necessarily being able to kind of creep into that category just yet. If there's anybody that's close to either one of them, it's Georgia, who's closer to Alabama than anybody in the ACC, close enough to Clemson. The other side, though, where it would be beneficial to them and literally everybody else, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Ohio State, is, if you slip up, you're probably still going to make the playoff because those teams aren't going to slip up and lose 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
They'll slip up and lose 1, and in seemingly an off year, they'll slip up and lose 2, but more than likely really have a shot to get into the playoff with 12 teams. And so so it would benefit them from that standpoint. I am a traditionalist, always have been, always will be. I'm also have evolved myself into what is best for the sport because we're not going back to 2 teams. It's not happening. Like we're at 4. So if it ever changes, Darren, it's only going to grow. We all know that. And so, what is the best way to create more parity in the sport? And is it by going to a 12-team or larger playoff? Is it by going to an 8, which you were such a big, maybe still are a big proponent of, and things like that? I don't know, but I get the traditionalist angle that they all have.
I get it, but my guess is, look, if you're Nick Saban and you're Dabo Sweeney and you talk about expanding the playoffs, if your team has 3 losses, if you're Nick Saban or Dabo Sweeney today, and you say your team's going to have 3 losses, are you good enough to win a national championship? They'd probably laugh at your face. Right. Even if the playoffs were expanded, you might be able to get in with 3 losses. They'd still probably just laugh at you. If they have a national championship caliber team, they're not losing 3 games. That's just not. That's the way their mindset is working. So expanding the playoffs is just a way to bring more people into the party, just a way to have your pie bitten off a little bit more. I'm saving and dabble. I don't want that thing expanded at all. It makes sense to me.
The conversation will continue. Greg Sankey, by the way, said, yeah, it's gonna be a few years. So continue to have fun with it as you may. We always have fun with JC Shurburtt, owner of the BigSpur.com. Gamecocks' newest commitment released his intentions yesterday. Keenan Nelson Jr. out of the backyard of the Penn State Nittany Lions coming to
We're not worried.
Columbia.
I'll speak for them. Not worried.
It's not what I'm hearing. We'll let JC clear all this up.
Okay.
Right here on the JB and Goldwater show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with 0 down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump?
Strike 2.
If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with 0 down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right. Local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day burger every Wednesday, rib night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Your online radio. The new online radio that makes you happy.
I got honeybee beating on my screen door. I got a little buzz in my head. So cause we come from a long line of sinners like me. La-di-da, la-di-da, la-di-da.
You were listening to the JB and Goldwater show, live, loud, and online.
Don't cry for me when I'm gone. Just put a quarter in the jukebox and sing me back home.
This White Sox hat he's got on here is killing me.
At least we can see it. I mean, it's perfectly viewable, if that's the word.
It's a commitment to the pinstripes are a commitment to excellence, guys.
That's what the Yankees say, JC.
I feel that way about South Carolina's pinstripe baseball uniforms. I feel that way about this White Sox visor. I just think it screams excellence.
It's excellent, JC.
That's my thing. Commitment to excellence, man. That's what you're going to get right here.
Well, you're excellent. That's why we have you on Wednesdays. How are you?
Thank you. Good. Just kind of taking it all in with media days and stuff this week, some recruiting news, stuff like that. Just cut a game inside the Gamecocks podcast this morning, so I'm rocking and rolling.
Tell us about Keenan Nelson Jr. Been waiting on this one to officially publicly drop.
Yeah, drop is an interesting word because, lo and behold, perfect timing today, 24/7 Sports releases their new top 247. He drops out of the top 24/7, which.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I mean, and I'd ask about that because I know he's probably a guy that they had a little bit high as a pure corner. I think he's more of a versatile defensive back. He's already 200 pounds. I think he's a guy, maybe a safety, even a linebacker. Could be a corner, though. I mean, when Will Muschamp was at Florida, I'll tell you this right now, I was in the evaluations game heavily. And I swore to God, Keanu O'Neal would end up being a linebacker, and he wasn't. So I learned my lesson there a little bit. It's unfortunate that he dropped. I just, I try to let the rankings guys do their job. I was under the impression from talking to some people that he wasn't going to drop, and they were going to wait and see him and all that, but he dropped completely out. So that's kind of the discussion right now. Really, all I'm going to say about it is it's unfortunate that happened because even if you're looking to drop him bigly, it's best to sort of wait and not do it right after he commits. And what you're basically saying there as an evaluator is we value James Franklin's opinion overall, or we value what comes out from a staff that doesn't get a kid over everything. Because you of course the daggum narrative with he and Brubaker both were Penn State didn't want him. Well, then you talk to somebody else and they said, well they wanted Brubaker but not Nelson, or then they wanted Nelson but not Brubaker, and blah 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 blah. And so you do have some uneven information coming out there, and that usually means it's spin. I just think it's really unfortunate that happened today. Not being a homer here, just saying that's that's probably something that if I were evaluating a guy like this and he had just committed and, had 35 offers and you heard conflicting info about him, I may put a red flag on it and watch him during the season. I may even, drop him 20 spots or so and move him to safety if you have questions about it being a corner. I wouldn't drop him out of my top 247 right now, though. And that's that sort of gets into where our business opens itself up for criticism in terms of catering to blue blood schools. That definitely opens you up for that type of criticism. And if my fans on the Big Spur today take it to those guys, then I can't help them. Although, I've been in that chair before, and you can ask Auburn people about me back in the day at Rivals. They were convinced. They called me Bammer Shurburtt. Because Alabama's guys were ranked. The one guy I caught the most crap for, guys, was a kid named Javier Arenas. And we remember how good he was for Bama.
Absolutely.
Alabama signed him late out of Tampa. I think they flipped him from South Florida. And what it was, we had a philosophy at Rivals. Past a certain date, we're not going to put any stars on a guy. They'll just be 0 stars or whatever. So Auburn people wanted this kid 0 stars. And I looked at his film. I was like, there's no way we can do that and be credible. So I ranked him as a 3-star. All hell broke loose on the Auburn. It was called the Bunker at the time. The Auburn message board went nuts. Bama Sherbert, Bammer this, Bammer that, all that good stuff. And, those were bad days for me. It was bad. It were bad days when the rankings came out. But as far as Gamecock fans go and their criticism of this particular move, I'm not helping them. I just, I'm not defending it. I think it's unfortunate, like I said.
How about this then? When you look at the film, what do you see with Keenan Nelson? What does he bring?
I think he's a great football player that can play a number of positions in your secondary. Is he going to outgrow corner? Maybe. Maybe he's a strong safety, nickel, linebacker. He's got good coverage skills for a guy's size. Speed is a question. But for kids that are 200 pounds that are from Philadelphia, where it's cold and stuff like that, they're gonna hang some 4.7s or 4.8s up there in the 40, and they're usually not that slow. Usually they come south or they go and they get in a college program where they're working on their speed and they learn how to run and stuff like that. They end up being 4.5, 4.6, whatever. So that's That would be my take. Like I said, I as an evaluator, I could have gotten behind something between 150 and 175 and a position move to safety, but just dropping him out like that, I think that you have to be careful and aware of that when a guy just commits, and then you have a narrative on the team that they beat for him that this kid isn't good. What that's saying is we are catering to whatever this staff says, because they're a blue blood, and this rookie staff at South Carolina can pound sand. And so, unfortunately, whether that's right or not, that's going to be the feeling that most Gamecock fans have. And, I think that's a bad thing, because I think that you should never, like the doctor's creed is do no harm. I think recruiting rankings are the same way. And I think when you do that to a school, it sends a message that, okay, the guys that go to school here are not good enough. Even though this is not supposed to be about that. It's supposed to be about individual talent rankings. I mean, if you look at the NFL draft every year for validation of your rankings, you're not worried about blue blood schools. You're worried about, individual talent. And the NFL draft plays out that way. I mean, everybody ranks Georgia's guys really high, and they have for years from in-state. And you look last year, who's the number one? Who's the guy from within the state of Georgia that was drafted in the first round that actually went to UGA? It was a 3-star corner named Eric Stokes. There's a 3-star linebacker from Georgia that went to Kentucky. That was a first rounder. JC Horn was a guy that 24/7 Sports had as a 88 because they were worried about his speed. Number one defensive player taken in the draft, and so. And those guys really had Georgia offered them, University of Georgia. I don't think any of them, except Stokes, obviously would have been a 3-star. So if that's what you're doing, if you're looking at the draft, which theoretically that's what it's supposed to be, you're being very careful about, this guy's not going here, so we're going to drop him or whatever. And I understand there were some concerns, and I understand the corner thing, sure. But you can't tell me you look at the film and you've watched that guy or whatever, and you sit there and say, well, he's not even going to be good at safety, because that's just not true. I think he's a good defensive player.
12:43 on a Wednesday afternoon to greener pastures, JC. Evaluate Shane Beamer's performance at Media Days.
Yeah, I thought he was kind of Shane, positive. I thought he did a good job. And people ask me, and I see these articles, winners and losers from SEC media.
I know.
And you're like, listen, man, unless
talking season.
Yeah, unless you're like a quote machine like Spurrier, or you're like Mike Leach, however, you don't really win. I think a lot of times you just don't want to screw it up. You don't want to say anything controversial or that's going to, get the cancel mob on Twitter after you or anything, Dabo Swinney. I think Beamer, though, surpassed expectations. I think South Carolina, and I said this today, has, a relevance issue, when you have Lou Holtz and Steve Spurrier as your head coach for 16 and a half years. And then you go to somebody else and it's not a Hall of Famer, people don't pay as close of attention unless you're winning, and they haven't been winning. So I think Shane did what he needed to do by promoting South Carolina. And if you notice when he was asked questions, you'll get questions like, it's like somebody was trying to write a story about that time Frank Beamer almost took the Alabama job. Did you notice this?
Oh, yeah.
And
yesterday on the show, actually.
Yeah, and Shane answers the question and starts off with it, and then goes right back to how his dad talked about how South Carolina was one of the best jobs. Yeah. And so he kept it on topic. And I think that's very important for this program. You're constantly selling. You're constantly, selling yourself. You've got some guys in that audience out there that, because he hadn't been an OC or DC, they want to rank him as the worst Power 5 coach in the country.
Yeah, Dennis Dodd's one of them.
Yeah, and then write things about how Brian Harsin has a recruiting advantage over him because Beamer's never recruited at this level. I mean, that's probably the worst take I've ever
It's not
heard.
a take, it's a lie.
It's just not true. I mean, it's just not true. So, but I think
he's done it for 20 years.
Yeah, and if you look at his, Harsin, and this is nothing against Brian Harsin, because I think Auburn's going to be fine. But if you look at his career, it's almost all on the Group of Five level, save 2 years at Texas as the OC under Mack Brown. Now, did he learn a lot of recruiting under Mack Brown those 2 years? I don't know. It doesn't look like it. They're last in the SEC in recruiting. And a lot of these Alabama kids that South Carolina's been in on, that it's like Bama or – they're leaving the state. And so, I don't know, if you're Auburn, you kind of scratch your head right now with it, but sometimes these things work out. But
JC.
Dodd actually said that. And I was like, that's amazing. I can't believe that.
It was a lie.
There's no question. I mean, it's just like, you literally made things up on it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you, I hate to ask this question because everything I know about this guy is he's a great, great guy. But we see what Alabama's doing offensively. Do you think people want to play in a Mike Bobo offense?
I would be more concerned about the Boise offense, to be honest. Everybody thinks because they're a Mountain West team, they run spread. They haven't. They're a pro-style team. They've been that way for years. They do power runs. They get fullbacks, tight ends involved.
Yeah.
And I'd be more concerned about that. I think Bobo is going to be fine because I think Bobo kind of knows what he needs to do, and he's got a quarterback committed he likes and all that good stuff. I think maybe the rest of the staff and Harsin himself aren't really getting, it just looks to me, and this is from the outside looking in, I don't know, they're going to have the Big Cat Weekend, which I always love the Big Cat Weekend because of the name of it. And I'm like, you couldn't do that at South Carolina because these kids' egos are way too out of control anyway. That just wouldn't be good. But they're doing things like bringing back the Big Cat Weekend, which they didn't have planned initially, and things like that. So, but it looks like when you look at their commit list and sort of their very methodical approach to recruiting, that they're trying to kind of do it like Boise. And I think that's fine in the SEC if you're Vanderbilt. And I always believe in evaluations and being thorough and things like that. But you also can't be Paul Johnson and just take anybody and throw them out there and run your scheme and bat 500. Not at Auburn. I mean, Auburn people, maybe at Vanderbilt you could do it, but not at Auburn. Auburn people are not going to – they're going to go crazy because the minute you lose some games, they're going to point back to recruiting and go, oh, you don't have the players. You don't have players. Look at Alabama. Look at us. Everything is through the prism of Alabama there. And so hopefully they get it turned around. But that just kind of reinforced the lack of knowledge by Dennis Dodd on this subject because, one of the big storylines of the summer is Auburn's been struggling in recruiting. And one of the other storylines is not just from people around here that South Carolina's been doing pretty well with Beamer. And to say that I hadn't recruited at this level, so Brian Harsin would have an advantage over him. It's ignoring reality and then ignoring the resume the two have because Beamer's been on the Power 5 level for 20 years. He's never been on the Group of 5 level. So that's that was just kind of interesting to me and all that.
Yeah, it was. That's just called not paying attention, and then all of a sudden you're asked about something you know nothing about, and you just go back to your talking points. That's what that is, and it was a lie. It was wrong. JC, elsewhere though in Hoover, Saban met with the media this morning. By the way, boys and girls, Kirby Smart had a much longer opening statement than Shane Beamer. How about that, huh? Ed Orgeron has already spoken. Lane Kiffin, of course. Mike Leach comes up this afternoon. But of those who have taken the podium so far in Hoover, what has stood out the most?
Oh, in Hoover so far? I think Nick Saban has sort of transcended a lot of things. Like he's almost gone beyond being the coach of Alabama. And if you look at really what he actually says, rather than people just wait, oh, it's Nick Saban, oh my gosh, if you look at what he actually says, he says things sometimes, guys, that are not even in Alabama's best interest. Obviously with the NIL thing, their people have stepped up pretty well, and all that. So it's, it's a deal where, that's to their benefit. And sorry, I'm getting phone calls.
White Sox?
No, it's that's to their benefit. But he talks about how it's not good for the game. Expanding the playoff, they're going to be in it regardless. But is it good for the game in bowl games? I mean, Alabama's been in an actual bowl game. 2013 after the kick six, they went to the Sugar Bowl. And they have a couple of Citrus Bowls to their credit when they've lost to Auburn, and that's it. They've normally been in the championship game or the playoffs. So,
yeah,
I think that's always interesting to hear what he has to say, because I think, he's rolling at Alabama. They're going to keep rolling. It doesn't matter, what happens. But I think sometimes he speaks for the good of the game.
Him and Coach Sweeney had a couple of similar comments about the college football playoff. Darren and I were talking about this right before you popped on with us here about 20 minutes ago or so. And the fact that, Nick Saban said today, you're going to probably have to pick a lane here because the bowl system and the playoff system are not going to be able to coexist. But, Coach Sweeney mentioned yesterday, JC, and I'm making sure that I address them as coach, that he's a traditionalist, and he'd like to see just what it used to be, two teams or whatever it is. But that cat's not going back in the bag, right?
Nah.
We all know that. So if it changes, it's expanding. But to your point a minute ago is that it might not be in the best interest necessarily for them. Some of the things that Saban was saying, it might not be in the best interest for Alabama. Is that in the best interest for Alabama or an expanded playoff?
No, I think Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State and Oklahoma, those four teams, and Notre Dame, throw a fifth one in there. Those are the five teams out of the 130 that have benefited from this style of playoff. I mean, really everybody else has kind of gotten pooped on from time to time, including TCU, Baylor, Penn State, you name it. Florida, I just think that, you look at it, and if you don't expand it, what you're doing is you're basically counting on like Michigan to come back and topple, or Penn State to topple Ohio State in their division. You're counting on name your ACC school to step up. You're counting on, Georgia to all of a sudden beat Bama regularly, which they haven't been able to do, and give them a little bit of variety out of the SEC, which the SEC, to its credit, has sent three different teams to the playoff. It's not like, it's only been Bama, but it is most years. And I think when you're like that, and you're kind of set up that way, and, for Ryan Day, Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban, Brian Kelly, whoever, you name them, Lincoln Riley, I don't think he won't change, because you don't want to make it. It's always about the path of least resistance. And,
for yourself.
It's going to be tougher for Clemson to get to the finals every year, or to even get to the semis. It's going to be tougher for Oklahoma and Ohio State. So,
I mean, is there a way, JC, that the top voices in the sport, and right now I would say that Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban are at the top of that mountain as far as coaches whose opinions matter? Is there a way that they could almost is the word debunk? Could there be a challenge in the way of an expanded playoff led by these coaches?
No, because everybody else wants the expansion. And if you notice how people have been scheduling in the future, it's with an eye toward playoff expansion, including at Bama. Now, I don't know about Clemson. I think they've kind of got their Notre Dame game every few years, and then they schedule a Oklahoma or a LSU or whatever. Then they got South Carolina. They haven't changed that.
Georgia.
But, I mean, you look at Georgia. They got Georgia. Georgia's got Clemson, Texas, Florida State. One year I think they play Clemson and Texas and Georgia Tech in the non-conference, and that's brutal. You look at some of the other SEC schools that are sort of like South Carolina peers, and then you've got all kinds of – Ole Miss has a home and home with Oregon State and Charlotte. Yeah. Mississippi State's going to Tulane and BYU. I mean, you look at how these teams have scheduled. They've scheduled with an eye towards schedule strength. Now here's where that could kind of run aground. That ship could run aground. Is the committee still isn't they have not made a move that says we value schedule strength over record. Because you get 2 losses, it gets demonstratively harder to get. I mean, the only 2-loss team I think that had a shot at getting in was Auburn in 2017 after they beat Bama and Georgia back-to-back by double digits when both were ranked number 1. And then if they'd have won the SEC championship game again, a rematch against Georgia, I'm pretty confident that 2-loss team would have gotten in. Everybody else, no. I mean, it's brutal. Alabama goes to the Citrus Bowl when they have 2 losses. So are they going to get out of that mindset? Or in the rankings, or are we going to still have like a Coastal Carolina ahead of a 2-loss SEC West team just because, college football in their mind is still an undefeated sport? You got to go – it means something to go undefeated. Well, that's going to change the calculation on scheduling a bit. And you're going to see some of these games that everybody is excited about. I'm kind of hopeful I'm alive when some of them are played. Those games everybody's excited about, you're going to see those start getting balled out, and the sisters of the poor starting to come back, especially in a league like the SEC, and especially if the SEC went to 9 games, which I'm not necessarily – I have mixed feelings about it. It may be like the 12-team playoff, and I like it after it's announced. But, the SEC goes to 9 games, and then you're Georgia – and you got your in-state rival who won't be terribly down awful forever. And you've got Florida State and Texas, or Florida State and Clemson all in the same year, and you go 8-4 and you miss the playoff. You're like, well, what the hell do we do that for?
The 9-game thing is, I'm a big proponent of that. I wish they would play more. Dan Mullen brought it up on Monday. He would like to see the cross-division permanence eliminated. Of course, Josh Heupel said, no, let's not do that. And he's at Tennessee. He's about to get a dose of reality this year when they play Bama. But it is a traditional rivalry, and I certainly understand that. But I think, and I think Darren alluded to this the other day, it's not going to probably happen in the SEC, a 9-game schedule. David Cloninger wrote about it today in the Postman Courier, as a matter of fact, unless there's the break from the NCAA at some point in time, the Power 5 maybe, or all of football, and you create some type of commissioner or some type of czar that says, I don't give a crap what anybody thinks. All the leagues are going to play X number of league games, period, the end. Y'all might need to figure out exactly how you're going to do that, but you're going to play 9 league games. Mm-hmm. That might be what forces them into doing that. But there's no leadership right now. The SEC has to look out for the interest of the SEC. A commissioner of college football would look out for the interest of college football. So everybody has a different interest here. I mean, the Pac-12 plays more. They need to play more because they don't have an Alabama out there. So if somebody can run through the Pac-12 schedule like that, they probably get in there. But the SEC doesn't have to do that. So until their hand is forced, maybe in coordination with the rest of the sport, I don't think you'll see it.
No, and look, the SEC has their reasons. I mean, if you're an SEC West team and you're sitting there, let's say you're Arkansas, man, signs of life last year in Fayetteville, right? Sam Pittman surpasses expectations. They snapped their SEC losing streak. Probably should have won Missouri and LSU too. Probably should have been 6-4, something like that. Really good team, I thought, last year, Arkansas. And but you look at where they are. You're sitting there and you're looking up at A&M, probably looking up at Auburn still, definitely looking up at Bama, definitely looking up at LSU. And then you got 2 mad scientist offensive coaches at the 2 Mississippi schools now. And now you beat those 2 teams last year, and you stopped them. So good. But, man, oh, man, that's a rough, division thing. Now, Arkansas is playing Texas this year. That's an old rivalry. They got it back on the schedule. So you're sitting there going, well, why should we do that? And then you talk about this, and people don't mention this enough because Florida State's down. Georgia Tech is way down. South Carolina's down. And then Louisville and Kentucky is kind of a newcomer deal, and Louisville's been sort of down, and those two teams are whatever. Kentucky is the one school that's not overscheduling. They still got three little sisters of the poor in Louisville every single year from here until eternity. And so those ACC SEC rivalries haven't really been all that competitive.
Yeah.
And so what nobody's thinking about is, well, what happens when Georgia Tech gets back to the level they were under George O'Leary, and it's realistic that they could beat Georgia in a game? Or what happens when Florida State comes back, and if you're Dan Mullen, and I know what Dan's saying, he'd like to play a little bit more variety in the West, and Florida's kind of had a stance for a while. They won't out of the LSU permanent opponent thing. That they've had some bad blood, in case you haven't noticed.
Yeah.
But what happens when FSU comes back, and all of a sudden you've got Alabama and Auburn in addition to LSU from the other division, and you're like, good Lord, and you got really two games, and Florida scheduled some big games too in the future. So, be careful what you wish for some of these folks. But I'm with you, and I think with the reason the ACC doesn't go to more than 8 is because they have that Notre Dame deal where 5 teams are playing Notre Dame every year anyway, and it's like, well, that's strength enough when you consider it. And most of those schools in that league, to their credit, they're not really bashful about scheduling. I mean, you have some, to their credit, they'll go schedule some SEC teams and things like that. But I do think you're right. It's going to take a czar of college football. I think it's long overdue to have one, to be honest. Czar, commissioner, whatever you want to call it, to kind of regulate these things and navigate these things to ensure an even playing field.
JC Shurburtt, owner of the BigSpur.com. It is time for a timeout. Hour 1 in the books. When we return, some NIL stuff to get to, some more media days coverage to discuss, and some notes from the Gamecock football team. By the way, just less than now a couple of weeks away from starting fall practice. Amazing. It'll be here before you know it. Hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back.
Mike Morgan here for Gamecock Traditions. Baseball is going strong. You'll want to look sharp when you cheer on your Gamecocks. Under Armour, New Era, sideline hats, all with interlocking SC Baseball logo. 18 styles of $10 tees exclusively at Gamecock Traditions. Get on that email list by going to the bottom of the page, enter your email, and always be the first to know about new items as they arrive. You can also add a little Gamecock flair with house signs, garden flags, interior and yard decorations, only at one place, Gamecock Traditions.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston. Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Lowcountry. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit StonoFerryGolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. StonoFerryGolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
JB Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online.
All right, final hour Wednesday afternoon. Still rolling right along with ACC kickoff, SEC media days, and so on and so forth. By the way, JC, really, really, really special coverage by your guys thus far this week, as always. I'm sure you probably already know that. Welcome back. Our program, of course, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, stokesvw.com. Make sure you've downloaded the JB and Goldwater app. Make sure you have a subscription to the bigspur.com. If you don't, you can get one right now for half off for a year. That's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Half off for a year subscription at the Big Spur. Unbelievable stuff. Guys like JC, John Whittle, John Del Bianco, Hale McGranahan, whom you heard from here yesterday, all just marvelous at what they do in covering South Carolina athletics. I would encourage you to be a part of that, as we are. I have a great membership, and that's where I steal my information every day to disperse as my own on this show. Just kidding, JC. All right. So real quick, I do want to ask you about name, image, and likeness. You know, Nick Saban has been fairly non-committal about the exact number or even anything close to it when it comes to the quarterback Bryce Young, although reports are out there that he might be nudging up to a 7-figure number in name, image, and likeness deals. We'll see. They haven't played a game, boys and girls. Nothing. Here's what that tells me, though. He's the quarterback at Alabama. That's what that says. This is not about Bryce Young. This is about Alabama. And why do I say that? Well, if Bryce Young was at North Carolina, would he be getting that deal? Nope. Because Sam Howell doesn't have anything near it. And I would venture, I would even, we'll have to see how it plays out, but preseason in the SEC, I would say Matt Corral over at Ole Miss might be the best quarterback in the league. And by the way, might be the most marketable. But Bryce Young, by virtue of being the quarterback at Alabama, because of all these guys and what they've done the last few years, you know, he's right there. So, JC, you know, none of us know how this is going to work out. All the coaches are being asked about it. I think Nick Saban has said it perfectly. I'm probably going to give you a response that's wrong because we don't know enough. So, you know, if let's say somebody pays him $500,000 to do whatever number it is, and then he's benched in the third game, you know, does he keep that deal? I mean, there's so much to come with all of this, but I think what's important to note is that we all talk about the brand of the athlete. Hey, boys and girls, the brand of that name and logo on the front of the uniform. Oh yeah, that matters. Let's not forget about that. Interested to see what you think about some of the comments that have been made by both players and coaches to this point.
Well, look, Bryce Young's about to be the starting quarterback at the University of Alabama. You're right. The name on the front of the jersey, although Bama doesn't have words on their jerseys, I don't think. I think they have on the back. But, yeah, it matters. I mean, and that's a tremendous amount of value brand-wise. I would like to see some responsibility on the part of people in general about this, and I don't think I'm going to because people have taken it and run with it at certain schools, and it's turned into a recruiting deal right away. I just don't think that was and I guess it doesn't matter. Somebody told me the other day, it doesn't matter what the spirit of the law or the rule is, JC.
Nope, doesn't matter. And
it doesn't. They're right about that. But I would like to see some, you know, guys that are, you know, everybody talks about, oh, these guys, you know, they work so hard and they don't get anything. And, you know, can't the whole narrative that used to be, well, they can't even afford a pizza. And that's not true anymore. There's pizza readily available, and, you know, they have enough to deliver it and go out on a date and, you believe it or not, have a car payment and all that stuff. But, you know, I would like to see some sort of meritocracy with this. In other words, and I've used this analogy before, having 5 stars out of high school, regardless of how much people love to talk about Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and those elite guys, you look at that and those guys are first rounders and really good and deserving of all the accolades they got. And they proved it on the field in college. But then you look at, Kyle Trask and Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. What kind of deals do you think those guys that have been signed? If they took Kyle Trask as the second quarter, Felipe Franks would have gotten all the money. And then Kyle Trask ended up winning the games. That's so, right. I think you have to be careful with that because I think it's false value in a lot of ways. Now, there are some exceptions, just like there is. Maybe Bryce Young is an exception because I do think he's a special talent. But I would still like to see it happen after they've accomplished at least something. You get on the field, Minka Fitzpatrick, Alabama, freshman year. Really good player. You guys remember him?
Absolutely.
And Landon Collins, they were on the punt block team their true freshman year. Now, they played some too, but Landon Collins got in there and blocked a punt and all that. And, then how good was he from then on? I mean, I'm not even saying you have to do that. I'm just saying let's not pay these guys until they're there because you're basically rewarding people for winning most likely to succeed superlative from their high school yearbook, right? We don't sit there and say you won most likely to succeed by your high school yearbook. Everybody voted for that, man. It's a consensus you're going to be a success. Here's a stethoscope, here's a white coat. You're going immediately to the hospital and getting paid $500,000 a year to be a doctor. Because you won most likely to succeed. That's how stupid it is.
Yeah.
That's how dumb this thing is. And man, I love recruiting rankings. I know I'm a little down on what happened with Nelson today. I've made a living doing this. I didn't take it this serious. And you see it now. I mean, we used to be pretty happy when folks would quote our rankings when they were talking about teams and writing stories about articles. Now you kind of look at it and you're like, my God, you have a narrative out there now that Darian Kendrick, because he was a 5-star coming out of high school, is going to be the difference between Georgia not winning the national championship and winning the national championship, when in reality, Darian got beat like a drum a lot when they played good teams, one-on-one. Very talented guy. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. And then Georgia brings in a kid from West Virginia that was all conference in the Big 12, and he's ranked below him for some reason. And I'm like, dude, I watched that kid play. That kid could be the difference,
right?
And that's the world we live in. And unfortunately, with name, image, likeness, it's the same way. Now, I'm just talking about football here too. Basketball and baseball. That may be different. I mean, because they're not as developmental as football. There's not the delta that you have with the highly ranked guys where some go this way, some go that way. There's a big delta in football. It's more narrow in basketball and baseball. So, and you got guys turning down pro contracts. You got guys that could go overseas and play in basketball before coming to school. And they're no-brainers. So I get it in those sports. Football, I think you got to be very, very careful about – throwing money around for unproven players. In general, the sport is a crapshoot. You've got NFL teams that have paid millions of dollars to Jamarcus Russells of the world and never pan out. That's the nature of the game. But I think that, people should be more responsible when you're dealing with high school kids coming to college in this sport and you're saying, all right, man, you were most likely to succeed. Here's your doctor's salary. Let's roll, because I think you're going to run into some situations where some of these guys aren't going to be able to handle it, and they're not going to do what they need to do to work hard. Because, guys, when you have $1 million in the bank, how hard are you really going to work?
Well, and to put that in context, especially if you've never had $1 million in the bank.
Yeah. It's all new. And I've been in the opinion too for a while that social media has turned a lot of recruits in football. And I see this a lot. And these guys, normally don't work out into like celebrities. So what happened? What happened when kids were celebrities? What happened to Macaulay Culkin? What happened to
Britney Spears?
Britney Spears? What happened to what's her name? Who's the girl that was in 50 First Dates with Adam Sandler?
Yeah, Julia.
She was in E.T.
Drew Barrymore.
Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
Grew up a celebrity, and look at kind of her life and how it went rocky. I think being a celebrity at a young age, Tiger Woods is kind of, there's some drawback to it. And I think with social media, what people have to understand is these fans that you all have on social media, this big following you have, they don't care about you once you go to another school.
No.
You're the enemy at that point. So that dissipates. And what I'm worried about is it's going to reinforce that celebrity, because what was missing with that celebrity and what would give you the motivation, guys, once half your following left and you're going to Miami or wherever? Money. Well, I'm going to go chase that money. These guys say that. I'm going to go be really good in college and get drafted. And well, now if you got $1 million in the bank, how hard are you really going to work? I mean, so that's my question about the whole thing. And I think it's a pipe dream that people are going to be responsible with it. And we've already seen that with things like Texas A&M website paying $10,000 for an interview. Look, man, I'll never do that.
Did you listen to the executive editor of TexAgs this morning on the SEC network? Did you hear that conversation?
Mm-mm.
I mean,
I know those guys.
Well, he was point blank. The guy he's got longer hair.
The Billy Lucci?
Yeah, Lucci. There you go.
I love Lucci. I love Billy Lucci, but yeah, as a person, yeah, he's a great guy.
Seems like a great guy. What I took away from that conversation was nothing, because he was actually asked, wait a second, you're paying $10,000 to these guys basically for exclusive interview rights. I didn't realize these rights go on for a while. And so what does that mean for everybody else? There's no answer. There's literally no answer to it. Well, we're going to have all these different columns, and we know that people like to take our information and they like to share it, and it's going to give them so much info. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense, because everybody interviews these guys, so like,
and it's not going to work as a business model. It won't work. You're not going to return $20,000 in investments on these guys on subscriptions, because you've got these guys exclusive, whatever that means.
Unless it's tied to a sponsorship, unless a sponsor is actually paying that behind the scenes.
If you got a sponsor, but I don't even think it's that interesting for fans to listen to, because of all that we write and report on, player interviews, unless they say something that's very profound or there's some scoop in there that gets by the coaching staff or whatever, oh, this guy's starting or whatever, like a news nugget, player interviews don't really generate that much for us. I mean, recruiting interviews do, but those are all canned as well. So unless you're getting some sort of news and some sort of exclusivity about, you'd be better off, interviewing an assistant coach every week, because more fans want to read that. Now, I don't know what it's like on Billy's site on TexAgs. I know those guys through history, they've done things a little differently, and I think they do a great job. And personally, I like every one of those guys. I think that they're, Lucci is like Mr. Aggie, and he, if I
he's
ever
got
want
that Texas in him now.
Yeah, if I want to know anything about A&M, I am calling Billy, and and he's a good person on top of that. So I'm not coming down on them if they want to do it. I'm never going to do that on the Big Spur, because that's just kind of not our thing. I mean, it's
let's bring this home a little bit. If you were to do that, if Darren and I gave you $20,000 right now and said, go pick out 2 players at South Carolina, who would you even choose to purchase their exclusive interview rights for the throughout the season until the season commences, whether it's in December or January, whenever?
None.
Oh, you got to pick 2. I mean, you have to pick.
If I have to pick
sponsorship
2,
back, you've got to pick 2.
Sponsorship back, I had to pick 2. I'd pick Marshawn Lloyd and Jordan Birch, one on each side of the ball.
Why would you not always? I'm literally asking this question. I'm not asking it condescendingly or anything. Why would you not, especially in a Power 5 program in the SEC? Why would you not always have the quarterback?
Well, I think Doty's going to probably be the quarterback, but there's, what happens when he gets beat out and the SID shuts him down, and you're, he if that happens, I don't know that. I don't think there's a good chance of that happening, but what if it did? If you know who the quarterback is for sure, 100%, like if Luke had started all year last year and it's a no-brainer he's the quarterback, or when Shaw was here the year before Dylan Thompson, sure, I agree with you. Right now, I think, just knowing my audience and who would be more – I think Marshawn Lloyd is a very good interview to start with, and he's kind of been through the trials and tribulations. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on him, quite frankly, talent-wise. Went back and watched him over the weekend. I think he's got a chance to be elite. And so that'd be a good guy to hear from. And then Jordan Birch, obviously one of the top recruits to ever come to South Carolina. Not the most talkative guy. Mom really wasn't a big fan of interviews during the recruiting process. So I don't know that we've heard enough out of Jordan Birch. And so
you're going to hear a lot this year.
That would be my, just from a talking standpoint, because of course freshmen couldn't talk last under Muschamp, but that would be my two guys. But I would probably not. I would try not to do it. I would actually, and look, if somebody sponsored it or whatever, that's fine. I think with NIL, the big, my business, the Big Spur, there's some other type things we can do with that, with players and with helping them out financially and having them provide value to our audience. I just don't think that interviews and exclusivity on that or one of them, or they're even worth it, because look, man, a guy's good enough. Do you have the exclusivity over the SEC network if they want to come in and get him on Feinbaum? Let's say Marshawn Lloyd rushes for 300 yards against Georgia and they upset the Dogs in Athens, and Feinbaum wants Marshawn on, but I've given him $10,000 for the exclusive. You think that with as much as the SEC network is worth to the school, that Marshawn's not going on Feinbaum? No, that's not going to happen. So that's kind of my thing with that. I do think that websites like mine have a place in NIL, but it's not going to be that kind of thing for that kind of money. And I just don't think you get any return in value other than a holy crap. I mean, like, their value is going to come from Billy being on Feinbaum and talking about it, not necessarily from the actual interviews.
I'll say this, just in years, talking to athletes versus the difference of talking to their coach or somebody else, most times the athletes aren't so interesting. I mean, they can only give you so much. They can't, other than their personal opinion on certain things, right? You're going to ask them about a game and what they saw and how they performed. Okay, it's not going to be that interesting. That's why when guys get out of the game, the very select few, once you get into the pro ranks, get out of the game, the very select few that are actually good media people command millions of dollars in TV. The rest of them, you don't hear and see from. The majority just aren't that captivating for what the average fan wants. That's my personal thing.
I agree, and that's, we're serving fans. I mean, that's our deal. Now, if you want to do something like you want to serve the program you're covering because you're a big fan and you want to kind of funnel money through your site and do whatever, that's a different business, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do is, I agree with you. And the other thing is this: if you did, let's say you did it for recruiting, and keep in mind, the laws are about collegiate athletes, not high school athletes.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there was any law other than eligibility issues against high school athletes. So if you're going to pay recruits, you better be damn sure that interview is going to have some substance, because recruits nowadays, how many times are you going to read, oh, it was a great experience, great visit. There's a family atmosphere there. I get along with the coaches really well. Oh, that's my dog.
They showed me love.
Yes, they showed me a lot of love. We went up there and ate. The food was good. My parents really liked it. I mean, and that's on a visit, okay? That's a visit reaction, which is still got some value. If it's their top 5, top 3, top 20 at times, which I think is egregious, they're going to put it on their social media, and rightfully so. So the value, I just don't know. I mean, wink, wink, nod, nod. Maybe you have a situation where the guy is going to tell you before he puts it on Twitter in 10 minutes, but that's not going to bring you value either. Like somebody on one of my members got upset because of the crystal ball, right? Because our deal is, if Shane Beamer tweets out a welcome home, we usually, but within 20 minutes, know who it is. But here's the deal. We don't change our crystal ball or allude to it, because the kid's going to have his moment. Now, Keenan Nelson Jr. lingered for a long, long time, and I get that. So people were getting upset. Well, what about we pay money for this, because they're members of my site. And I'm like, well, no, crystal ball is free. Anybody can look at it. That's number one. And number two, it's been since about 2012 since you could sell subscriptions on a commitment. You used to be able to put up a story on the front page, and I could put a picture that says new commitment, a picture of Shane Beamer on the front, not the player, nobody. And if I had it and nobody else did, shoot, I could sell 25 subscriptions in an hour. I've seen that happen before, but can't do that anymore, guys. Because it's on Twitter, it's on social media. You have scavengers out there that run their own social media accounts that, have big Gamecock recruiting that, all they do is troll everywhere and repeat information. And, those guys are useful too because they get the word out when you're talking about the overall apparatus. So you don't really sell subscriptions based on commitments and top fives and whatnot. That's more of a traffic play. So, it's going to be interesting. And I think just as far as my business goes with the Big Spur, we're not paying 10 grand. We're going to avoid the paying 10 grand for exclusive player interviews. I think our strategy with all this is going to be something a little bit different.
Well, I tell you what, now that you brought it up, I happened to catch Hale McGranahan's post on the Big Spur the other day about somebody in particular who's been stealing his information and putting it out publicly on Twitter. And that's just wrong, man. I mean, you got to be real low to do things like that. Some people don't think that it's that big. Well, this is going to be public anyways. Yeah, I don't think anybody has any clue how hard guys like Hale McGranahan work to try to get that scoop. That's why you pay him, JC, is to do that. And then somebody takes all that, and that's why people pay you to go get that scoop, and then you get scumbags like that who put information out publicly.
They try to be
that's low, man.
Whatever and stuff like that. So I'm just, and those guys are kind of the least of my concerns. Sometimes, I mean, I don't mind people getting into. Some guys got Instagram accounts and they sit there all day, and if something happens, they'll put up a picture in there, and that's fine. I mean, we don't do all that much on Instagram anyway, so that's fine. But when it gets blatant like that, you got somebody like Hale McGranahan who works his butt off, trying to scoop, and he's very well sourced and knows and all that, and that's stealing in a lot of ways, and I think that gets unfortunate.
It's low, man.
Yeah,
and if you're watching this
pretty much every way, not a lot of ways, like every way.
Yeah, dude. And if you're watching this show and it's you're low on the totem pole, brother.
Tisk, man.
Man, that's
shame on you, brother.
That's just wrong.
It is, but it's okay. The way you combat that in our business is you have a great user experience. You have a big time community where people can come feel comfortable talking. You're owning the scoop up until the commitment. You're saying this guy could go here. Here's what's going on. It's the details. It's not necessarily the what, it's the why. And as long as you own that and you have compelling content and a great community, you're going to have a great business. But the unfortunate thing for me is these other, it's not a business to them. It's just kind of like, I've got a lot of time on my hands, so I'm going to go. We'll go do this, I'm like, what?
Too much time.
Well, it's like that episode of South Park where, Stan's dad, Randy, they start the weed farm and they're not selling enough weed. And Burger King has the veggie Impossible Whopper or whatever. And they get this bright idea to open up a burger stand right next to Burger King and they sell weed burgers, and then so that they're integrity burgers or whatever. Burger King gets mad or whatever, but that's kind of how I look at it. I'm like, these guys they're not selling enough, insurance or whatever they're selling, whatever those guys' day job is, or maybe, things are a little slow at the Burger King. And so, you get up there and they're going to try to sit there and pitch a tent next to the Big Spur and compete and run us off. And my thing with that's always this, I don't mind competition. I get along with people that we compete against. Maybe when I was younger, I didn't. I don't mind competition at all, but be a man about it, or a woman, and go buy your own site, make the investment, hire a staff, and compete head to head with us. And I'll enjoy watching you go out of business in a couple of years.
Well said. I
Real
like it.
Competition makes everybody better.
Yeah, I mean, look, make the sacrifice. Don't be like a social media warrior. I mean, there's no job called that. You don't look on the job listings. What's it called? Zelk or something like that. Indeed.
Yeah.
Nobody looks on Indeed and goes social media warrior.
Troll.
Troll, professional troll. Maybe that's a job someday and you can get paid for it, but not today. So
NIL is right. Hey, real quick before we let you run, hello, Red. Before we let you run here, it is National Hot Dog Day. JC, what will be on your hot dog today? What's a Chicago dog look like?
All right, a Chicago dog's different because it has mustard relish, tomato, pickle, and sport peppers. I think it's the one in the upper left-hand corner. Yeah. Like last time I've ordered hot dogs, and I'm still kind of on my diet, so I don't know if I have one today. Now, you don't put ketchup on a hot dog up here. It's bad. So that's wrong. That's what I see that's wrong.
Do you put mayonnaise on a hot dog? Anybody?
No. Good God, no.
Never done that before. I like mayonnaise on hamburgers, but
my question is the people that argue about whether a hot dog is a sandwich. If it's a sandwich, you can put mayonnaise on it, right? But a hot dog, in my opinion, is not a sandwich.
I don't know if it's a sandwich or not.
It's not. It's a hot dog.
It's a hot dog. I agree.
Yeah, but up here they put so much stuff on it. It's almost like a tiny sub. Yeah. So I don't know. Anyway, but the last couple of times I've ordered from Portillo's, which is the big hot dog place here. Portillo's.
Yeah. Portillo's. You mean the box that you sent Mike Morgan in the mail? I'm still waiting on mine. Darren, have you seen yours?
Nope.
Neither.
I'll get you guys a Portillo's hot dog.
What were you saying? I'm sorry.
All right, I'm sorry. We brought them. But so they have a chili dog, right? You order on DoorDash or whatever, and it's like I always get it, chili and onions only. And the last two times I've gotten it's just had onions, no chili. And I looked on their menu the other day, and their cheeseburger hamburger section is gone. So I'm assuming they make the chili out of the burger meat, and they're out of burger meat completely since I've gotten a daggum hot dog with nothing but onions on it the last two times. I mean, seriously, I'm like, oh, this is a great onion dog. Super duper. That's amazing. Thank you, Portillo's, But if I had to eat a hot dog today, it'd probably be Chicago style, simply because I'm pretty sure Portillo's is still out of chili. But I like it Southern style. I love my Southern style hot dogs. Chili, mustard, onions. I get it like that up here. People think I'm insane. They're like, man, where's the tomato and sport peppers and relish and mustard on it? I'm like, I'll eat that too. But it's so hard to eat too because the tomato has juice and the pickle's got juice. The relish got juice. Your bun's all soggy unless you get it right there. Now, the beautiful thing is when you just get it. And that's a good bite right there. That's a really good flavor,
Yeah.
But if it gets soggy,
I'm good with mustard. I'll switch the mustards. There's occasionally I'll go yellow. Sometimes a golden brown. Sometimes one with like a horseradish in it. But I never ketchup. But I'm good with hot dog and mustard. Occasional sour. Occasional. But that's it.
I can do sauerkraut sometimes on a hot dog. They have this thing up here called a Maxwell Street Polish too. Excuse me. It's like a hot dog. Char grilled Polish sausage, right? Mustard and grilled onions. And the grilled onion flavor seeps down into it. You put it on a French hoagie roll, so it is like a sandwich. That's pretty good eating right there.
You two are killing me.
Maxwell Street.
I'm definitely getting a hot dog in like 35 minutes.
You could say that, the Chicago accent too. Maxwell Street Polish. Maxwell Street Polish.
Mm-hmm. Well, enjoy the hot dog, JC. Good news for you, my friend. We're only a couple of weeks away from all practice, and then about 6 weeks out from college football. So
looking forward to it, guys. Thanks so much. And you guys have a great one.
You're the best. See you, buddy. There you go. JC Shurburtt, owner of the Big Spur.com. Final time out of the afternoon. Has great hot dogs. DB's cheesesteaks. Yes, they have the best cheesesteak in town. They also have unbelievable hot dogs. I literally, I'll give you my hat, my visor, and my shirt.
Unbelievable.
If you go there and you disagree with me, they're unbelievable. When we return, though, speaking of my shirt, it's time for Carolina Football Part 4 with our friend Keith Allsep, who hosts the Locked On the Gamecocks podcast. And I will tell you how a special trick when it comes to making a great hot dog. Don't go anywhere. Right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with zero down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump? If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$16.66 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with zero down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right. Local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All three locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Gameday burger every Wednesday, rib night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
It's time for Carolina football.
The rain breaks out in Columbia. The electricity here in Columbia, well, it's been buzzing loudly all weekend.
Left side, Jeffries got space, and touchdown.
This is Rodgers again to the 25, 20, 15, 10. Rodgers scores!
Leonard Brown, he's up to the 20 and comes to the 24, bounces outside, and he's still going. He's fouled.
What a hit! Ball's free, on the ground. South Carolina deserves to have it, and they do.
Danny Hill, he'll run. Touchdown! Oh, watch him celebrate now.
And the atmosphere, the electricity, the passion of the crowd in Williams-Brice Stadium is second to none.
Final segment Wednesday afternoon, the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. It is now time for Carolina football, and soon officially, as it will be back in just a few weeks. Shane Beamer met with the media earlier this week over in Hoover at SEC Media Days, and we bring in our good and dear friend Keith Allsep, who, of course, hosts one of the great podcasts out there, the Locked On the Gamecocks podcast, which I have gear for now. So I will be wearing this hat around town. Hey, man, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Happy Wednesday.
Yeah, happy Wednesday, happy media days, happy closer to football season. I think we're all happy because we can smell it. You probably heard the bumper there, some of the great moments in Carolina football history, and this is about that time of year where you start to hear more of it, and that's why we got you here to talk about some of those moments and beyond. So
I think I was pretty much there for every one of those moments.
Let's see here. Clint, Craig, and everybody else like you more than us, so that's great. We're going to let you host it from here on out, and Darren and I are going
to faithful patrons, diehard supporters.
Yep,
love all those guys. Hosted a Zoom meeting with about 50 of my favorite Gamecocks and friends last night. That we do every Tuesday night for our VIP subscribers, and we do it for an hour to an hour and a half, and then we go to overtime, and that's when it really gets juicy. So,
well, that's after you've already had enough bourbon. You're like, out of hell with it. I'm gonna tell them what I really think. I know exactly how that feels. I do that often to people that I know can probably handle what I'm about to say, probably like you could, Keith. We've actually had those type conversations before.
We have.
All right, man. So here we go. Media days is underway. Look, we've talked a lot over the last couple of days about Shane and his performance and things like that. I do think we probably all agree he was pretty special over there in Hoover and how he represented the Gamecocks. I want to bring up something that Gene Sapikoff brought up yesterday on our programs. I actually thought it was a pretty good point by Gene. But I'm bringing this up for comparison sakes, not to pick on Shane at all. I know exactly why he was saying it. He mentioned at the podium at the Winfrey, Keith, hey, everywhere I go, people are telling me this is the most exciting time that they can remember at South Carolina. Well, I remember when Steve Spurrier got hired, it was pretty exciting. I think we all thought, okay, Carolina is they're about to do something nobody can ever dream of here. Is it? And where would you rank it? How exciting is this time in reference to others in the program's past?
All right. So Shane Beamer was very measured in every one of his comments. I thought he absolutely killed it. But I think, Alec Baldwin and Glenn Ross telling the telesales people to the ABC, always be closing. Then you go to Saturday Night Live. He's in Santa's workshop with the elves, and it's ABC, always be cobbling. Well, that was funny, but for Shane Beamer's life is always be recruiting. And it wasn't just the remark about tight ends are near and dear to my heart, and we want to recruit the premier tight ends in the country here at South Carolina, and we're going to recruit that way. Obviously, everybody in the room, everybody in Gamecock Nation knew, and so did Oscar Delp. That was for an audience of one. And but there were several other things, and I just think that Shane recruiting, hell, I think they filled up the stadium when Lou Holtz had his introductory press conference. I mean, there were over 20,000 people there. Granted, that was in the previous century, but not that long ago. Certainly Steve Spurrier, and after the 4-year run of winning the East, playing for the SEC championship, then going 11-2, 3 straight years, right up until kickoff of the Texas A&M game in 2014 on the SEC network, and preseason number 5, South Carolina, where Greg McElroy had projected them to win the national championship.
Yeah.
That was probably the most excited, and it changed in a hurry. But for Shane, I will agree this is the most united and the most excitement I've seen and sensed from the Gamecock fan base since that moment. Because as we've talked about, no matter, short of winning a national championship, beating Alabama in Williams-Brice Stadium, Will Muschamp was never going to get Gamecock Nation fully behind him because he got fired at Florida.
That's right. Keith, that's a great point. Darren and I talked about this yesterday with Gene Sapikoff, that exact thing, and the fact that it was Unfortunately, I was a supporter of Will Muschamp for two reasons. Number one, I like him. Number two, I thought that he would do better. And but from day one, it was a fractured fan base on that hire, and he was well behind the eight ball. And the only way to get out of that was to go do something that Steve Spurrier did, and that's probably win 10 or 11 games, and it didn't happen. He did win 9, but right down the crapper from there. Shane was recruiting.
No breaks.
Yeah, absolutely.
The end.
Shane was recruiting. He wasn't in that moment, though, just recruiting players, Keith. That was his opportunity to recruit those who cover the sport across the country who maybe didn't quite understand the hire or don't know Shane Beamer, like those of us in the Palmetto State have learned to get to know him over the last few months since he's been the head coach. I think he was successful in that. I want to go to something you said, though, and I'm going to bring a different angle to this. So, yeah, he was recruiting Oscar Delp. We all know that. We'll see what happens. Yes, it is true that South Carolina has Craig. That's enough, man. I got a show to host here. Yes, it's true that South Carolina has pumped a bunch of tight ends into the league over the last 13 years or so. Keith, get Jared Cook and Wesley Saunders and so on and so forth. Justice Cunningham, Hayden. You know what else they've done over the last 20-plus years, Keith? Put a lot of damn defensive ends in the NFL. A lot of them.
Go lost. I'm sorry.
And a lot, and these Yankees around here, Keith, and a lot of defensive linemen in general. We haven't seen it yet, but it's talking season, and everybody has every right to be excited about something. What I am most excited about is the photo that was tweeted out yesterday. JJ Enagbare and Jordan Burch looks different. And these guys on opposite ends on that defensive line, Keith, I think South Carolina under Steve Spurrier was well known for what they had up front there. And I'd like to see that become much more consistent like it used to be. These guys have every opportunity to be quite dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. And people – have revisionist history pretty much on every issue and topic. But it wasn't like when South Carolina started winning 11 games and it was no longer 5-loss Spurrier, as David Pollock dubbed him, because every year South Carolina did lose at least 5 games, including the year they went to the SEC championship game. They wound up losing 5 games because they were 9-3 and lost championship game, then lost to FSU right back there in Atlanta. They were winning with defense. They had top 10, top 15 defenses, and they were winning with a running game with a guy named Marcus Lattimore.
Pretty good player.
Your guy, Patrick DeMarco, lined up at fullback 40 times in the swamp to win the SEC East. And then even when Lattimore was not injured in most games, South Carolina won with defense. Connor Shaw was not electric as a sophomore. He struggled some as a junior. His senior year, lights out, no doubt about it. But South Carolina was winning a lot of low-scoring games, ugly games, in fact, at Mississippi State, at Tennessee. A lot of games went down to the wire in South Carolina's defense. Hell, even against Navy, Jadeveon Clowney finally decided, all right, enough of this crap. It's a one-score game, and he made like 3 straight plays behind the line of scrimmage, and that was the end of the game.
It was over. When he decided, hey, man, it's time for me to do something, there was nobody in the country who could stop him. You could have put the entire offensive line on Jadeveon Clowney at times, and there's nothing you could do about it. But I want to translate that, though, to something that is a little bit more unsettling, and we'll just have to kind of see where it goes. But, Nick Saban, just a little while ago on the SEC Network, which, by the way, quote of the day, this is not going to get as much attention as it should, is, what is the key to longevity in coaching? He said, winning.
Brilliant.
But
it's a simple thing.
It's just win. But what he actually also said was, hey, I had to change. You got to score points now. This is Nick Saban. And he was like, a few years ago, we had to change 45-40 national championship game. I mean, had to hang 50 on Ohio State, whatever it was. And that's coming from the best coach in the sport, man. Maybe the best coach in any sport in this country. And it's different, Keith, and we can excite ourselves, and I'm one of them with defensive guys, but you got to score. And this team, luckily, they get a couple of games maybe to figure that out. But at the end of the day, they're going to have to figure out how to score, and not just score like 30 points. Like, they're going to have to score points.
Coaches are like dinosaurs. You either evolve or you become extinct.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all universally of the Nick Saban disciples outside of Jimbo Fisher, who still had great college offenses, but had more NFL busts at quarterbacks as first-round draft picks, going back to Jamarcus Russell when he was coaching them at LSU, through all the ones at Florida State. Even famous Jameis got cut and had to be a backup. Nobody has evolved like Nick Saban has evolved. It got Will Muschamp fired twice. It got Derek Dooley fired. And Kirby Smart, like we talked about last week, his job is not to replicate Mark Richt's career. And
that's right.
Kirby Smart will either evolve offensively and let go and let it flow like Nick Saban has done, or he'll end up getting paid a lot of money not to coach Georgia football.
They can promote Muschamp. But what does that tell you about South Carolina? Because we literally know nothing, Keith. Like we know nothing. I'm making an educated guess here, and my education is minimal at this point. But based on what I understand, you're probably like, if you are a fan and you look out there on Saturday, September the 4th, and you see Jaheim Bell and EJ Jenkins and Nick Muse and Jaquandre White and Kevin Harris on the field, and no wide receivers, like, I don't know that should surprise you. I mean, I think you'll probably see DeCarrion Joyner out there and a couple of other guys here and there. But as time goes on, I don't know that the little WR or the TE or the RB next to these names, I don't know that that's going to matter. I think they're literally like, we're just going to figure this out with the just like Shane said, it's all about personnel.
Well, so I thought there was a very interesting tweak in the media guide that was not noticed, with Tonka Hemingway going from 270 pounds to 297 pounds, or Rashawn Wanamaker dropping 20 pounds, or Gilbert Edmond going from 230 to 250, or Jordan Strong going from 220 to 246, was EJ Jenkins at 6'7" plus 243 pounds is listed as a wide receiver.
Right.
And to me, that tells you all you need to know. Is basically South Carolina is going to be in a lot of 3 tight end formations because he's a tight end, but they're listing him as a wide receiver because he can really run. But you are going to have EJ Jenkins, Jaheim Bell, and Nick Muse out on the field almost all the time. And that is a 3 tight end, 1 back. And then I think DeCarrion Joyner will be out there. I think, it could be some Amarian Brown. It could be Jalen Brooks. But I don't really know after that. And quite frankly, neither do the coaches, because none of these guys have ever done it. And the most explosive wide receiver on the roster is a guy named Xavier Legette, who did not practice in spring.
Right. And I think that it's fair to say that they do care. They're trying to upgrade this position as quickly as they possibly can, Keith. But I truly believe that this offensive staff, and it's not just, this isn't just exclusive to the play caller or the coaches that will be on the headsets on game day in official capacities. This is this extends off and beyond to guys like, Pat DeMarco, 11-year NFL veteran, and all these other analysts that they've got, Connor Shaw. You're going to find the true colors of this offensive staff quickly at South Carolina, because they don't have any choice but to be creative in order to be successful and to produce better results than what the large majority of people are predicting.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not very smart. I have to write stuff down when I think about it to remember it. But I think you're going to see this is going to be more old school SEC football, because that is the strength of this team. Shane Beamer said it. Talent at quarterback is young and inexperienced. Well, what happens when you have a young, inexperienced quarterback? You don't ask that quarterback to throw it 40, 50 times a game, unless you're Brian McClendon and really don't know what the hell you're doing. You rely on your veteran offensive line, on your most talented position, which is the running back position, and then you let Luke Doty manage the game, run some zone read at times, boot him out, let him use the short intermediate passing game, and then take, when you're running the ball, you take your shots from that, play action passing game, because guys are worried about, oh my God, I'm getting ready to get hit again by Kevin Harris. I better get ready. And so to me, that's what they're going to have to do. And they're going to have to use smoke and mirrors and formations. And I think Satterfield will do that. But to me, you got to be more like Mike Bobo than Lincoln Riley this year if you're South Carolina, simply based on your personnel.
Yeah, flexible. I mean,
that's a big quote for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Scary one, I think, for a lot of Gamecock fans. If they just see that on the surface, they're going to say, whoa.
Look, Mike Bobo, people don't understand. Like, South Carolina led the conference in, Kevin Harris did, but in yards before contact. South Carolina led the conference in that. And for me, Mike Bobo had a quarterback with one leg, no wide receivers he could count on, not named Shi Smith. And everybody knew they were going to throw it to Shi Smith. They were going to throw it to Nick Muse, and Kevin Harris was going to run the ball. And they still did it. They just couldn't stop anybody.
Yeah.
Not at all. Couldn't stop anybody.
Yeah, no, it was I've been searching for months to try to find a word that's past poor. Awful doesn't exceed poor. So I still haven't come up with that one just yet.
Completely inept. How about that?
God awful. How about that?
That's a good one.
Final one here, and then we'll let you run. We might run a couple minutes past 2:00, but that's okay. Thank God for the people that listen to your and listen to your show, or we wouldn't have anybody around here. As it pertains to Marcus Satterfield, what are you paying attention to the most? I'd say in games 1 and 2 combined, Keith, as a play caller, as an OC, what will you be? Because we know what comes after that, Georgia and Kentucky. So what are you most interested in seeing from this offense in those 8 quarters? The first 2, Eastern Illinois and East Carolina.
Well, I think if I'm Marcus Satterfield, I'm hoping that I can score enough points to not show any SEC opponent anything on film. I want to be as basic as I can be. I want to run the ball. I want to control the clock. I want to put Luke Doty in situations in which he can be most successful and build confidence to get ready for the gauntlet of that schedule, which will be to come. And I really don't know what you throw. To me, it may not matter this year what you can throw the kitchen sink at Georgia. Georgia is Georgia this year. To me, they're significantly better than anybody else in the SEC East because of all the personnel Florida lost. I think they're clearly second, and then I think you could jumble a lot of other teams up. But it's going to be the swing games. It's going to be Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri.
Yep.
And then, Vanderbilt, which you better beat Vanderbilt.
Yeah, you don't lose that game.
Right. And you want to beat East Carolina and you want to beat Troy. And gosh, I think that's 6 wins. You could be 6-1 and then lose to about everybody else.
That's true. As we mentioned the other day, Darren and I we buy and sell the over-unders of the ACC and the SEC on Fridays through football season here on our program. And we were just talking about this the other day. It's never what you think it's going to be. There's always a loss in there you don't unless you're Bama. There's always a loss in there you don't expect, and there's always a win in there that you don't expect, if not 2 on either side. So, we'll see. Keith, Locked On the Gamecocks podcast today. It's a free episode for those who are not patrons of your show, which is excellent. I've been a guest on it many times, and I'm honored to be always. So what will we hear today and what's to come in the next few days?
All right, so today we had Hale McGranahan. We talked about how the summer of Shane just keeps rolling right along with the commitment of Keenan Nelson Jr. Sidebar commentary, I've now lost all respect for the evaluators at 24/7 Sports. Charlotte Flowers left. It's garbage.
Unbelievable.
We talked about that. We talked about Shane at Media Days. I've got Colin Taylor coming up tomorrow. We'll be talking about the new baseball hires by Mark Kingston, which I think were 2 outstanding hires. We'll get his take on SEC Media Days. We'll talk some men's basketball, some summer league maybe. And then on Friday, we'll have Ben Portnoy from GoGamecocks.com, the new beat writer. He was with us last week. He's been at SEC Media Days. I think he's leaving today to make that trip back. And he's very, very good. And, he was at covering Mississippi State before this new gig. And so he's got a lot of insight into Mississippi State baseball, Mississippi State women's basketball, which is a big rivalry with South Carolina. At least while Vic Schaefer was there. I think, Gamecock fans hope it will be because we all love Nikki McCray-Penson because she was right there every step of the way helping Dawn Staley to that first national championship. So that's what's coming up the rest of this week. Then next week we'll start position previews and there'll be more recruiting because the period opens back up on Sunday and like Shane Beamer said, I don't think he's finished. I think Gamecock fans can probably expect 1 or 2 more commitments before they get into fall camp.
The Summer of Shane, as you dubbed this not too long ago. Keith Allsep, the host of and owner and everything else of the Locked On the Gamecocks podcast. It's probably the best one out there when it comes strictly to South Carolina. Make sure that you check it out wherever you get your podcasts. You can always find Keith now at 1:30 on Wednesday afternoons here on our program as well. Hey, buddy, we're getting closer. You got a great-looking shirt to go with that bald head.
Yes, sir. No doubt about it.
Hey, thanks for I haven't given Darren.
It's talking season.
It's talking season, this, that, and the other. Yep.
That's sharp.
I have not given Darren his stuff yet. Darren doesn't even know that I have a shirt and a hat for him. So
that's sharp. That's sharp. I'll rock that.
I have some stuff over here for you, Darren. So I'll make sure that I get it to you.
Well, I appreciate it.
On that note, have a hot dog today, Keith, and some junk food. It is National Hot Dog and National Junk Food Day.
Look, the best hot dogs in South Carolina, if you're in the upstate, it's Skin Thrashers. No doubt about it. The original in Anderson. They cut the buns, like they turn the buns over and they cut them on the top.
Huh.
And it's
interesting.
A hot dog, okay, number one, has chili on it. All right. We all agree to that. Out here in Texas, they just think
we do not all agree to that, but you can continue.
Well,
I'm with you. I'm a chili guy.
That's different. You're actually a damn Yankee because you hadn't gone back. but that's okay. Yeah, I didn't make it up. I'm just saying what the rules are.
I know.
But a hot dog has chili on it and it has mustard on it. And if you like onions, it definitely has onions. But you see how all those buns are at Skin Thrashers, they turn them over and they cut them on the top. And I've been there on the Mill Hill. It's an old house. And they got a sign saying up there that no more than 2 beers and the language you use in church is just fine for us. And
all right.
It's an iconic place. If you've never been there, go. They've got pictures of former presidents, Strom Thurmond, all the great politicians that have come through, Frank Howard, Danny Ford, all those guys. They've got satellite locations, but as always, my favorite thing to do, and I'd love to surprise my dad. He worked in Pendleton, and I'd pick him up and we'd go over to Skin Thrashers and sit at the bar or sit at a table and have a couple of hot dogs and a Coke in a bottle and some chips.
Old school.
Old school, no doubt about it.
Skin Thrashers. Next time I'm up there, I'll make sure I go in there and let them know that you sent me. Maybe they'll discount my hot dog. Discount my wiener.
Ever mentioned Skin Thrashers on the JB and Goldwater show?
It's a first.
No, but yeah, it's first time.
Yeah, first.
Well, all your Clemson people are clueless.
Yeah.
At least when it comes to hot dogs.
That's right.
They know they're Tigers. But.
Careful what you say around here. We get in trouble for a lot of that. Can't be critical.
Hey, mad respect, Grace Rayner, all those.
She's the best.
Awesome.
Love Grace.
The Clemson guys. So,
yeah.
At any rate, hey guys, it's been great as always. Darren, I was going to make sure to let you know that there was a cap and a T-shirt, both of very high quality, that were put in there for you.
Yep. You know what's great about these?
We just got to keep Jamie in line and make sure that I get them.
What's great about these hats is they're not low profile. They fit the bucket domes like me. They'll come all the way down to your ears.
Yeah.
So for you too, Darren, it'll work because your head isn't small.
I'm more of a low profile cap guy, but those are awesome. And that a lot of the patrons wanted the trucker style cap with the mesh back. And well, actually, one of my patrons, he works at a place in Charlotte that made those.
Oh, nice.
Oh, they're great hats. Richardson.
Yep.
Original 112 trucker hats.
That's Richardson. Yep, that's the official baseball cap for Tasso in Texas is the Richardson baseball cap.
Right. Thanks, Keith.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a good rest of the week. Looking forward to next week when I'm going to tell you the night I fell in love.
Oh, I can't wait for that. We'll get you on. We'll cut JC off early for that. See ya. Keith Allsep, host of the Locked on the Gamecocks podcast. We're out of time. We'll get into some of the rule changes in college football tomorrow, but just keep in mind that the 2-point conversion will be very well known. Yeah. Also keep an eye on the rest of the media day stuff today. We're going to get more into some of the baseball hires at South Carolina as well. So we have a good rest of the week. Darren and I have our buy and sell over-unders coming up on Friday. It's fun. It might be July, Darren, but it's talking season. It's football season, this, that, and the other.
Almost August.
Can't wait. Usually around here, August is hot, but this year it's going to be on fire. Just kidding. I don't know. We got to go. It's time for a hot dog. Everybody, thank you so much. Thanks to JC and Keith, and as always, thanks to Darren. And we'll see you tomorrow at noon on the JB and Goldwater Show.